Hello class, my name is Max Kistner, and for my first project I decided to create a basic accounting calculator. I got the idea from my girlfriend who just recently started her accounting career, and she kept expressing to me a problem that she didn't like the way the programs given to her by her work worked, and she wanted things a certain way, so I tried to help and give her a custom-made calculator. So all the functions work as you would imagine a calculator: subtract, add, multiply. Oh, whoops. Subtract, add, multiply, divide. Everything works in the way you think. And then these two buttons right here are clear buttons and backspaces. So the first one will be your backspace, and then it removes from the input value, so you can, if you mistype something, you can just easily delete it. And then this CE is a clear everything function, so it just gets rid of everything. And if you notice on the side, there's a green area. This would be the history area. So every time you hit enter, it puts a string value of what your equation was, and then it gives you the answer, so you can go back and look at what all the functions you did, everything, all the history behind it. And then so one of the buttons she wanted me to make specifically was a percent button. So the idea behind it is, so let's say 9 times 50%. So I'd want to do 50, and then I'd do percent. Wait. Okay, so I guess something got messed up when I was messing with the git bash, but the function is supposed to take the 50 value and then go through the code and then create basically a value that would be 0.5, but it's supposed to, oh no. Okay, so let me just recreate that. So it's supposed to take this value and return it as 0.5 instead. So it's supposed to clear that out and then replace it with the value of 0.5. But I guess something got messed up, so that doesn't work the same way. Spent a lot of time on that and it's not working great. But so when you hit the equal button, it returns it into here, and then I have a function in the bottom left that is called clear history, so it just removes all the values in here, so you can just restart on a fresh slate. Okay, so now looking into the code, here is the beginning HTML, just basic, creating the image that would be the buttons, the calculator itself. And then coming down here is all the JavaScript that I have that does all the functions. So in the beginning, I declared all the all the variables that I deemed necessary, or that I figured out was necessary through writing the code. And so one of the first functions that happens in here is these two things. It immediately creates clicks functions for all of the numbers, operations, all the buttons that are on the calculator itself. And then after that, this right here is the update display. So this update display updates the input display. So every time you would click on a button, say, or any of the numbers, it'll just add it to it. And also the operation. So it'll take the value that is in the ID and then return it as like a text object, and then I add it to the input display, and then so on. And so down here is all the operations, so all the subtraction, multiplication, division, adding, all that are these basic ones right here. And then coming down here is the equal function. This one gave me a lot of trouble because of the history that I wanted to, the history display that I added. Through a lot of trial and error, I figured out that there are a lot of functions and commands or Java functions that don't work within these cases for some reason. I had a lot of trouble with things like arrays.toString to try and get the values that are, like for this value right here, I first started off with trying to do arrays.toString to get the value of the array. I tried, but that didn't work. It kept giving me invalid inputs. So eventually, after hours of trying to do different things, I realized that I do already have a value for it, and then just replaced it with that, and it worked great. No problems with it since. And then this is a clear history function. And so down here, I have separate functions for click buttons that aren't really like an operation or a number, so they're a little bit more specific. The first one is the clear button, so this would be the clear everything. It just makes blank array. It sets the input value to blank. It creates a blank array, so it just deletes every values that are in here, and then you'll have a blank screen. This right here is the backspace button, so if you mess up, you can just easily remove one of the values. And this right here, I spent a lot of time getting this to work, but it seems that something is messed up, so I'll try and explain what I did to hopefully give you an idea. So what it does is it's supposed to remove the numbers that are before either the end, like when the string has no values, so if it was an empty string, or if the last number is a function and not a number, which is this right here. So it goes through. Another thing that I found a lot of problems with is dot length. These functions do not really like length functions at all. I kept getting invalid inputs for it, so it just crashed my code. Wouldn't even let the buttons work sometimes. So I had to use that function instead. Finally got it to work, and then I had to use a while loop because it wouldn't let me do dot length functions, and you really need that in a for loop. So I couldn't do that, so I had to create a while loop and make my own way of doing it. So what happens is I temp true. This is just a value to actually loop through the while loop. So it takes in the last, so the length is then made equal to, so I think I realized what I did. This value right here, I believe, should be length instead of I, because I originally tried doing it as an I value, but I wasn't able to get it to work that way, so I used this was the value that I just created, and so it comes through the loop, takes the character at I, which is supposed to be length, and then comes through. If it's not a number, which would be like an operation function, multiply, divide, things like that, it'll come down here and go through this if statement, and then this will create a temporary value for the percent. So this would be what is eventually returned or used eventually to return, and so it creates a substring of different of the last numbers in the end. So, and then for down here, I had to create a function to create a new length, or to see how many of the letters at the end or numbers in the string needed to be removed in order to then put back in the percent value so it comes out as what you wanted it. And then removes the substring from the input value through this number that I created, and then add the percent back into the input value. And then for the array, you got to push in a value at the end that is percent divided by 100, so it actually creates a percent in the end, and then display it to the input. And once it finally finds not a number, it creates a temp to false, so this while loop gets exited out of, basically. And then after that function, I have the clear history, which was very simple to do. And that is my project.